Hi friends, welcome to Toppscholars, the smart learning app which is also your constant companion in your board exam preparations now. So here we are again back with another chapter and discussion on the sample questions from this chapter. So before we move on, let's first discuss the marking schemes, shall we? So as you can see here that we have marks from 1 mark, 2 mark, 3 marks and 5 marks from this particular chapter, and the way it is distributed looks somewhat like this. So in 2019 we have one question of 1 mark, in 2020 we had 2 questions of 1 mark, in 21 we had 1 question, and in 23 again we had 1 question. So we got you total 5 questions in last 5 years, which can get you total 5 marks. In 2 marks question, we can see that we had 1 question in 2020, 1 in 22 and 1 in 23. So we got you 3 questions and total of 6 marks. And then let's move on to the 3 marks question, and you can see that we have 1 question from 2020 and 1 question in 23, but that gives us a total of 6 marks. And for 5 marks question, which is our maximum marks question from this chapter, we have 1 from 2019, 1 from 21, 1 from 22 and 1 from 23. So total 4 questions giving us 20 marks. So we can see that at least 20 marks can be easily scored if we just study 5 marks questions. But then we also have our 6 marks for 3 marks question. We have 6 marks from 2 marks question and 5 marks from 1 mark question. So that much marks can be scored if we study this chapter thoroughly, right? And there will be many repeated questions as well, which you can see, and then keep in mind that these are the important questions and there are certain topics that you need to mark and keep in mind so that you don't skip those topics without any fail, right? Now, if we see it in a graphical representation form, we can see that we had maximum question, there are four questions in 2020 and 23, and we had at least 2 questions every year, right? So this is actually a very important chapter, and you can see that we have 5 marks question in 4 years, right? So we will be discussing those questions and we will make sure you're better prepared in this chapter like all other chapter we have discussed so far. So let's move on to the first question, which is from 2019, and it is a very short answer type question carrying 1 mark. Pranav and Preeti are twins in your class. They belong to the dash twins type. Now get the clue here. What is written here? Pranav and Preeti. They are twins. But what kind of twins are they? They are dizygotic twins. Why? Because there is one Pranav and one Preeti, one of male gender and one of female gender. So isn't that what happens in dizygotic twins? They have different genders, right? So the answer to this question is dizygotic twins. Now let's move on to the next question. Again in 2019, it carries 5 marks. Here the first sub question is, gender of a child is determined by the male partner of a couple. Draw a diagram explaining the above statement. Now what happens during the gamete formation? The chromosomes are, the 2n or the diploid chromosomes are divided into haploid, and then they take part in the sexual reproduction. The zygote formation takes place wherein the zygote chromosome is the combination of male and female. Now we all know that the gender of a person is determined by which chromosome? X and Y chromosome, and the pair X and Y is present in male and in female it is XX chromosomes, right? Now during the random division, at that time the gametes which contains the X chromosome from the male participates in the zygote formation with female will have the combination XX chromosome and will result into a female offspring, right? But in case of the zygote formation, wherein Y chromosome participates in the embryo formation or the zygote formation, it combines with the female gamete and it will have XY chromosome and it will result into a male offspring, right? So in this way, we can see that we can say by the diagrammatic representation as well that the male gamete is the only reason why we have the resultant offspring as either female or male, right? So therefore, we can justify using a diagram explanation that the gender of a child is determined by male partner only, because they only have the different set of chromosome types which is X and Y, and as per the participation of either X or Y from the male gamete combined with the female gamete, which is always is going to be XX only, the resultant zygote will get its chromosome pair and will determine the sex or gender of the offspring. Now prepare a slogan for a campaign against female feticide. So this has been a very grave problem, especially in our country and many other developing country, where they feel that female child is a burden to them, and they have been what is feticide mean, that is they try to kill the female child right when they are born. So what is a slogan that you can think of to campaign against this injustice that you have to write? Now the third sub question in here is, in the following figure, explain how new fungal colonies of mucor are formed. This is a 1 mark question. And then identify and state the type of reproduction represented in the above figure. So how do this spore formation takes place? It is a mitotic division that takes place in the sporulation formation. So there is a sporulation process that is going on. Spores are formed and this spore is then taking part in the sexual reproduction, right? So we will have to describe that, and that is going to get you 1 mark, that is 2 marks in total, right? Now let's move on to the next question, that is from 2020. First is the MCQ type question carrying 1 mark. The body breaks up into several fragments and each fragment starts to live as a new individual. This is a dash type of reproduction. Now think about it, like this question actually gives you the answer. You can see in the question itself 2 times the word fragment is repeated, right? So what type of reproduction is it going to be? A, budding; B, fragmentation; C, regeneration; or D, binary fission? Of course, it's fragmentation, right? Now, next question. It is a very short answer type question carrying 1 mark. Write the function of testes. Okay, so this is a male reproductive organ, and what is its function? There are 3 main functions. There is production of spermatozoa, and second is the production of testosterone, that is the male sex hormone, and the fourth is participating in the hypothalamus and pituitary regulatory process in the reproduction system, right? Now next question, give scientific reason. This is a short answer type question carrying 2 marks. Give scientific reason Indians should follow family planning to control the population. This is again a very social question that you need to answer. You should start with the population of our India and how it is rising every year and why it is necessary to control the population, why the increase in population is giving rise to unnecessary competition towards the resources which are present and which are available to us, and how because of that there are different problems arising such as poverty, illiteracy, etc., etc., right? Now next is Explain the following concepts in short. Surrogacy, in vitro fertilization, that is IVF, and sperm bank. So, we will be discussing this in further detail in our subsequent slides. Now, let's move on to the year 2021. Here we have two questions. One is of 1 mark and the other one is of 5 marks, right, in the year 21. So, let's first see the 1 mark question. Separate the odd component. Here the components given are progesterone, estrogen, melanin and testosterone. Which one is the odd one here? Let's see, is it melanin? So, of course, melanin, because all the rest are the reproductive hormones, whereas melanin is present inside our skin. It is a pigment which is responsible for the color of the skin, right? Now, with the help of a neat label diagram, write any 3 parts of the inside of a flower. This is a 5 mark question. It's a long answer question, and this is to do with our flower topic, right? So, we have to draw a neat label diagram and write any parts of the inside of our flower. And this inside, you know that like flower is a very important organ of a plant which takes part in the reproduction, right? So, we have to write any 3 parts of the inside of a flower. Okay, so you have your anther, stigma, ovary, ovules, etc., etc. So, you can label these parts and write about those organs which are taking part in the reproduction process, right? Now, let's move on to the next year, that is 22. Distinguish between sexual and asexual reproduction. Again, you can see that this question is also repeated. We are getting many questions which is encircling sexual and asexual reproduction. So, make sure not to skip this topic, right? So, there is just asking for 2 points, but you might as well learn at least 4 to 5 points to distinguish between sexual and asexual reproduction, so that you will be able to get maximum marks around this topic. Now, the second question is sketch and label the essential and accessory whorls of flowers. So, which are the essential and accessory whorls? Accessory whorls are our petals and sepals. They don't participate in the reproduction process, and our essential whorls are the androecium and the gynoecium, right? So, you have to sketch and label those parts and then also mention why these are known as the essential and the accessory whorls of a flower. So, again you can see that there is one question surrounding the flower, and by surrounding the flower we mean that we are to understand the different parts of the flower and where and what part takes part in which function, right? And you also need to practice the diagram of the flower, the inside of the flower, right? Now, next question which we have from 2023, our last year, right? So, first one is our MCQ type question carrying 1 mark. The type of sexual reproduction is dash, and the options are A. Fragmentation, B. Regeneration, C. Gamete formation, or D. Budding. So, out of these, sexual reproduction is what? It is our gamete formation, right? Now, the next question gives scientific reason. Flower is the structural unit of sexual reproduction in plant. So, we have to give a scientific reason for that. Again, if you can see, it is around flower, and we already discussed why the flower is called the structural unit of sexual reproduction in plant, which are the parts of the flower that takes part in the sexual reproduction, how sexual reproduction in flower takes place. So, you have to explain that in short for giving scientific reason for this particular question. Now, let's move on to the next question. Here we have cockroach, frog, sparrow, starfish. From these animals which can regenerate its broken body part. This is a 3 mark question which is absolutely easy to answer. Okay, so out of this, we have what animal which can regenerate its broken part. So if at certain given time when it has any accident and it loses its part, which of these animal can regenerate its body part and why? So we will be answering this question in detail as well. Okay, so we know that it is starfish anyways. Okay, now the next question, it is a long answer question and it's a very important question. Yes, there is a diagram given here. You first have to identify what is this diagram, what it is trying to say, and then answer the following question by observing a diagram of menstrual cycle. So it is definitely given here that this is a diagram of the menstrual cycle. Now, what are the questions that we need to answer, which is you have to just pick up the answer from this particular diagram and then try to answer. So let's see the questions first. What is the period of menstruation? This is our first sub question, right? Then B, on which day does ovulation occur during the menstrual cycle? Then C, in the menstrual cycle, which reproductive organs undergo changes? And D, which period is said to be the period of regeneration of the endometrium? And E, which period is said to be the period of secretion of glands in the endometrium? So all these questions will give you 5 marks. So for this, you will have to understand and know the concept of menstrual cycle, and you also need to understand the diagram that was given there. So let's move on, because we will be answering this question in detail for your better understanding. Okay, now here we have another question we will be trying to solve here. Okay, so the question is from 2020. It's a 3-mark question. Explain the following concept in short. We saw this question earlier, we parked it, and now we will be answering this question. So the first is surrogacy, second is IVF, in vitro fertilization, and C is sperm bank. So let's see the solution. What is surrogacy? Women having problems in the implantation of embryos in their uterus may opt for surrogacy, in which modern technology is used to collect oocytes from the ovary. Okay, and then fertilization is undergone in a test tube using the sperm collection from her husband. And then what happens? Then the embryo formed is then implanted in the uterus of another woman having a normal uterus and is referred to as surrogate mother. Okay, so this another woman who is known as the surrogate mother voluntarily takes part and agrees to let the embryo grow and go through all the cycles inside her uterus, and once the baby is born, it is given to the original parents, right? So this is the surrogacy. Now, what is IVF? Fertilization takes place in a test tube followed by implantation of embryo in the uterus of a woman at the proper time, right? Useful for couples having problems like low sperm count, obstacles in oviduct, etc. Okay, so these are all different types of artificial techniques for the reproduction. Okay. Now, the next one is sperm bank. What is a sperm bank? In case of infertility due to problems in sperm production, a sperm bank is useful wherein semen ejaculated by the desired man is collected after thorough physical and medical checkup and stored in sperm bank. As per the wish of needful couple, the oocyte of a woman of concerned couple is fertilized by IVF technique that we saw earlier using the semen from the sperm bank, right? Then the resultant embryo is implanted in the uterus of the same woman. The name of the semen donor is strictly kept secret as per the law. Okay. Now, next question that we are going to solve is this one from 23 that carries 3 marks. Cockroach, frog, sparrow, starfish. From these animals, which can regenerate its broken part? So, we have already guessed it, starfish. And why is that so? Let's see the solution. Starfish belonging to the phylum Echinodermata shows the power of regeneration, and none of the other animals given in the list shows that power of regeneration. So, cockroaches, frogs and sparrows are complex organisms not having the property of complete regeneration, and that is the reason why only starfish is able to regenerate its broken body parts. Now, let's understand the next question solution. So, as we discussed, this is going to be a very interesting type of question, and you have to figure out the entire menstrual cycle from the given diagram and answer the questions concerning this entire cycle. Okay, so here is the diagram. Okay, and there are different types of periods wherein different changes takes place. There are different hormones which are released, there are different changes occurring, and then there are different phases that is occurring, and here we have the end of the cycle, right? So now we will have to answer the questions in the following slide. So the first question is, what is period of menstruation? On which day does ovulation occur during the menstrual cycle? And then third, in the menstrual cycle, which reproductive organs undergo changes? Number 4, which period is said to be the period of regeneration of endometrium? Which period is said to be the period of secretion of glands in the endometrium? So let's see the answers, right? So the solution is, first is menstruation generally lasts for 1 to 5 days. Second, ovulation occurs on the 14th or 15th day of the entire cycle. C, the ovary and uterus undergo changes during the menstrual cycle. So these are the parts that undergo during changes during the menstrual cycle. Days from 5th to 14th are the period of regeneration of endometrium, as it signifies the regeneration of endometrium lining. Then the period of secretion of glands in the endometrium is 15 to 28 days. Okay, so this brings us to the end of our discussion on this chapter, and now we have discussed all the questions from this sample question paper. I hope you understood this and you will be able to better prepare for your examination. Thank you and all the best.